Hi, welcome back to another episode of Big Daddy Real Talk. I'm your host, Grace. Sorry for missing last week. It was Thanksgiving, as you all know. We were super busy at my work, and I got off super late on Wednesday, and I had to go in early on Thursday, so I just did not want to stay up recording and doing my really shitty editing, so I assumed everyone was okay with me missing because it was Thanksgiving, but I hope you guys all had a good Thanksgiving and excited for Christmas time because, I know I am. So, because I missed last week's episode, I'm going to do 2 installations for my dating app segment. So, the first one is, I just learned what, cuckold relationships are. I don't know if you guys know what they are, but it's a woman-dominated relationship. So I matched with this guy on a dating app, and he told me straight up, second message, I want a cuckold relationship. And I was like, I don't know what that is. So he basically explained it to me, and his definition is he wants to be in a relationship with a partner who he takes on the more traditionally submissive roles. That's what he called it, of cooking, cleaning, just being there. But then also he wants his partner to have sex with other men while in a relationship. I do not get it. I don't get why people would want to do that. In my mind, that seems like cheating, but that's just me. So I asked him, I'm like, why do you want this? Why do you want this type of relationship? He says it just what turns him on, but also he apparently can only last 90 seconds having sex. And so he feels bad for his potential partners that they might not have a good time having sex. So he wants to let his partner have sex with different people. And his ideal is quote unquote big dicks, which it's also subjective. But yeah, did not stop talking to him because he was like, I really want this. I'm like, that seems like cheating. Okay, but yeah, second one is I match with this guy. We talk. I give him my snap. And I'm just leaving work, and he goes, hey, what's up? How was work? I'm like, yeah, good. Basic talk. He goes, what are you doing this weekend? And I'm like, oh, I'm working. He goes, oh, can I come over this weekend? And I'm like, I just told you I'm working. He goes, well, I can just hang out in your apartment while you're at work and wait for you. I'm like, why? No. And he goes, well, I'm really depressed and I want to hang out with a girl. But mind you, does not have a car, and he lives 2 to 3 hours away. So I'm like, no, that's ridiculous. Why are you suggesting this? And then he calls me on Snap, which I find is weird because I don't really talk to people on video or phone call. And he's like, I was like, why'd you call? He goes, well, I was really horny, so I wanted to hear your voice. I was like, no. And I don't talk to him anymore really on Snap. I still have him on Snap because I just don't want to add people because I'm whatever. That's my red flag. But he called me a couple times afterwards and was like, I'd be like, why did you call? He goes, well, I'm horny. I'm like, I'm not the girl for you. Find a girl closer to you. But yeah, so to this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about past guys that I've talked to or had hooked up with, or just in general, guys from my past. This is actually kind of part of the reason I got inspired to start this podcast. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold, so I might be drinking water throughout this. Hydro flask. So, in 2019, my friend Drew and Will had this podcast together called What the Jordan Will. It's when Drew used to go by Jordan. And I was on it. I was on an episode called Asian American Idol. And it was just talking about 3 guys from my past. Like, 2 I hooked up with, 1 I talked to, and I just felt like it's been 4 years since that happened. And so I just wanted to kind of do a more recent update of it. I know I talked about my ex Nick a couple weeks ago and just all his red flags, but this one is more bite size. I'm probably going to talk about 4 guys from my past. And just, yeah. So, this one, I think, is, my craziest story. So, it's 2021. I'm living in Maine. I live on an island, in Maine. So, it's, I'm 23. I matched with this guy on Bumble who's 21. At the time, I'm like, that's so young. I don't know about that. But I hang out with him a couple times. No, I hang out with him twice in total, but he takes me on this really shitty picnic by the water, and then we get go for a walk and we just talk. And I end up hooking up with him, and he spends the night. But you have to remember a couple things about him. 1, he's a lobster fisherman. 2, he lives in a town called Ellsworth, but he works in a town called Bass Harbor, which is on the island. Ellsworth is 20 minutes from the island. And 3, he has his old Siamese cat. Okay, so then I hang out with him one other time. We go for a little drive around the island, because it's a pretty big island, and we're riding in his hearse. His car of choice was a hearse. Don't know why. It's kind of weird, but whatever. And we end up hooking up in the back of a hearse. Who am I? That's my when I'm talking to people, where's the weirdest place you had sex? That's where I say the back of a hearse. But whatever. So I talk to him. I'm like, hey, you always drive out here. Well, I can come to Ellsworth. It's not that far. I actually need to go in Ellsworth sometimes for groceries. That was where the local Walmart was. And he's always no, my apartment's shitty, blah blah blah. So at the time, I thought I was going to live there. I was going to come back for the holidays, for Thanksgiving and Christmas, in January, because the place I was working at was a seasonal resort. But I was going to try to come back the next season in end of February, beginning of March, and just work there again. But I ended up not doing that. I actually ended up visiting my family a lot, my friends, and I worked at a place called Clarity. Met some amazing people there that I love and care about so much. But so because I thought I was going to live in Maine, I was on this Facebook group that helped you try to find housing on the island. And so one day I'm scrolling through it, because I was maybe I'll find a place. It was really hard. I never found anything suitable. But I see this girl, and she's just posted in the group, and her message is, hi, me and my boyfriend are looking for a place on the island. We currently live in Ellsworth, Maine, but my boyfriend's a lobster fisherman in Bass Harbor. And just another note was oh, we have an old Siamese cat, so we have to look for a pet friendly place. I was oh my god, is this the guy? I did not know his first name. No, I knew his first name. Didn't know his last name. So I am go to this girl's profile. I'm looking through her profile, and I go to her, like, I see that she says who she's in a relationship with. So I go there and I click the guy's profile. It's the guy I hooked up with. So I'm like, oh shit. So I message him. I like text him. I'm like, hey, do you have a girlfriend? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, do you have a girlfriend? He goes, no, why are you asking? I'm like, well, this really weird coincidence happened. I'm on this like Facebook group, and this girl like posted about her boyfriend who's a lobster fisherman in the same place as you, and they also live in Ellsworth, and they have a cat. Isn't that a weird coincidence? And he's like, yeah, totally. And he's like trying to have me believe that he didn't cheat. And finally he breaks. He's like, yeah, that I did cheat on my girlfriend. I really care about her. And I was just bored, and you're like the only person I cheated with. Blah, blah, blah. Don't tell her. I'm like, oh my god. And I was like about to leave. I was leaving Maine to go home to Virginia. In literally like 2 weeks, I was like, whatever. Like, dude, I won't tell her. Like, just don't do it again. Blah, blah, blah. Because I just didn't want to deal with it. And I regret not telling her, but I like checked in on the I don't know, a little weird, so I kept checking in on her Facebook to see if she was still dating him, and she was for like a year after I hooked up with him. But yeah, I went through a thing like that a year ago where I was like, every guy that I left kind of on bad, weird terms with in my past I hooked up with, I'm going to friend them on Facebook. Not all of them, just a handful. And so I friended him. He was like, didn't accept my friend request, but he goes, why did you friend me? I'm like, I told him, I was like, oh, I'm just going through whatever, trying to make peace with my life. And I'm like, oh, are you still with your girlfriend? He goes, no, she learned that I cheated on her. And I really regret it. I'm trying to win her back. And I like gave him advice on like, here's how you can try to win her back, but like I'm not sure if she's gonna accept you. But yeah. He also changed his name on Facebook, like his first name, to Worm. So it's Worm and then his last name, which is really weird. But his ex-girlfriend is like kind of emo. She's in this like emo screamo band. I'm like, good for you. Her makeup kind of scares me. It's like really dark, but good for her. So the second guy was this guy I dated. We honestly we were hanging out dating for like 3 months, but officially dating for less than a month. So his name was Kyle. I have no shame in saying people's names from my past because what are they going to do? Find this? So Kyle was a year younger than me. 10 months. But he lived in Winchester. I like met him in a time of my life where I was like going through a lot of shit. It was like 2020. I like felt like I had no friends because I just went through like a huge thing in my life, friendship wise, and like my best friend from culinary school who lived with me for almost a year moved back, and I was just really lost. So I think that's part of the reason I dated him. But matched on Tinder, made some joke about the CIA being a spy school. I've heard that joke so many times. I'm like, haha. Turns out he was a chef also. Red flag. I say as I'm a chef. But he also didn't drive. And he lived like an hour from me. So I would like drive to see him. Um, yeah, he also worked a lot. He had 2 jobs, which is not a red flag, but like just didn't see him much. But so I spent a lot of time at his place. Um, he was from Florida. His previous relationship was a 5-year relationship with his best friend's sister. So that was kind of shitty. Because I was like, oh, wow. Like, and I think he got out of that relationship within a year of us dating. So, whatever. I don't think I was a rebound, but maybe I was. So, our first date went fine. I ended up hanging out with him a lot. But, like one of my red flags about him, like, my first one was, like, we would go to this brewery, and, it's called Bear Chase in Loudoun County. It's, like, 20 minutes from where he was living, so we went there a couple times. I would get, like, little 16-ounce cups to drink, but I wouldn't drink much. Like, I would get, like, 1 or 2. This man would drink pitchers of beer. Not cups, pitchers. One time I think he drank, like, 3 pitchers, plus another cup or 2. So that time, I drive him home. He's super drunk. He passes out when we get home to his apartment. And, he just falls asleep for hours. And I'm, like, crying because I'm, like, also very insecure. And, like, he gives me weird looks. And I, like, call my best friend and was like, I don't know if I can do this, blah, blah, blah. But, like, a couple weeks leading up to us being official, I kept being like, hey, like, we are very exclusive. We only hang out with each other. I think we should just be, like, officially official. He goes, no, I want to meet your parents first. So, I'm like, Mom, Dad, can we, like, meet in Middleburg? To, like, so you can meet him. So we do, and then he decides, not yet. So it took, like, another 2 weeks. But the reason we broke up is because of actually my mental health. I'm not, like, I admit it. I had mental health issues. I feel like a lot of people do. It's, like, no shame. But, I had a history of SH. So, apparently I told him one time I did. And then he made me promise, apparently, to never do it again. But, like, obviously, like, when people who do it are doing it, like, at that moment, they're going through shit and they're not thinking straight. So I did it and I told him, and he goes, I can't believe you did that to me. Like, you promised you wouldn't do it. I don't know if I could be with someone like that. I've lost someone I really cared about to SH, and I don't think I can do it again. I need to call you back. I need to think about it. I'm like sobbing, crying, because I'm like, the person I'm dating is threatening to break up with me because of my mental health. So then he calls me back like 20 minutes later. He's like, I think we should break up. I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, of course. I'm sobbing, being like, don't do it. Don't break up with me. Blah, blah, blah. But we ended up, like, blocking each other. I have not talked to him since. Oh, I did talk to him once afterwards. He messaged me, like, a year later when I was living in Maine. And I was like, who is this? And then I talked to him, and it was really weird. But yeah, so the next guy is this guy that I call Target Boy. He's like 2.5 years older than me. I literally matched with him right after I came back from culinary school. like a month or so after. And like, I'm still friends with him on Snapchat, and like I will still hook up with him every once in a while. But yeah, it's like really weird. He was working at Target at the time I met him, and he was like really cool. I thought he was really cool. And one time I did see him at Target when he was working, and like I went to Target. I used to like, I was a little psychopath, and I would like go to the Target he worked at to see if I could see him. And one time it happened, and that was the last time I went to that Target. Because he kept looking at me. I'm like, this is so weird. But no, yeah, I'm still friends with him. I like still talk to him. I literally we'll check in on each other every once in a while. He now works at Amazon. He works a lot. He like drives a motorcycle now. So good for him. But yeah, like back then, I was like, I really want to date him. I really want to date him. He did not want to date anyone. He was just got out of like a 3 or 4 year relationship where his ex cheated on him. So of course he was like, I don't want a relationship. And there's times I'm like, what if we dated? And he's like, no. And one time I was super drunk and I texted him that, he goes, no. And that was the last time I asked him. But I honestly don't think I would want to date him anymore. He kind of seems like a weeb. And like, that's not my vibe. And then he's also a car guy. And I think car guys are equivalent to horse girls. No explanation. Car guys are horse girls. But yeah, it's just, I still talk to him. I told him that his nickname was Target Boy for the longest time, and he thought it was funny. And then, so, the last guy I'm going to talk about is, his name's Ryan. I've only met him in person once. And it's like, this is like weird. So I matched with him after I came back from Maine. But like a month before I met Nick. And like, I like just went out with friends. And I just got home from like going out. And I like matched with him on a dating app. And we were talking. He's like, oh, I'm sick, blah, blah, blah. So I can go out. I'm like telling him about myself. He's telling me about him. He's like a political science accountant guy. And he played hockey in college, so we were talking. And he's like, I'll take you ice skating, because I was like, I don't know how to ice skate. I'm like really bad at it. And then we like talked for a couple days on Snapchat. And then he unadded me. So I was like, okay, whatever. Forget about it. Meet Nick. Date him. And then it's like maybe May or June, and I get a notification on Snapchat of someone adding me. It was this Ryan guy. I'm like, oh, this is weird. Like, or like, I don't know if I remembered him, but I like accept it because I'm like kind of weird. I'll like accept people friending me on Snapchat. I'll message them. How do I know you? Do I know you? So I do that, and then we like talk. I'm like, he's like, yeah, you seem really cute and like nice, and like I would love to hang out with you. And I was like, oh, I'm actually in a relationship. And he's like, no, blah blah blah. I was like, yeah, I met my boyfriend like a month after we talked that one time, and like that goes on for like a night or two, and then unadded on Snapchat again. And that happens like 1 or 2 more times while I'm dating Nick, and every time I'm like, I have a boyfriend, but if you want to be friends, we can be friends. And then finally, me and Nick break up, and he adds me again. I'm like, hey, like, what's up? We talk, we catch up. I'm like, oh, I'm actually single now. He goes, oh, that really sucks, because I'm like kind of seeing someone. He was kind of seeing a MILF, and I like would make fun of him for that. So that happens. That happens like one more time, and then it's probably like this happened in October, end of September, beginning of October. I go out with Giorgio and Catherine. They're like, do you want to go to Decades? Because I've never been to Decades. So I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go on a Friday. We've never gone on a Friday. So I'm like, let's try Friday. So I meet up with them, we're hanging, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like towards the last hour and a half, hour of before the club closes. I'm just on the top floor dancing with them. And like, I noticed this guy behind me. I'm like, this guy looks familiar. But like, I was like, oh, it kind of looks like this pictures of this guy, this guy Ryan in his pictures. But it can't be him. If it was, he probably would talk to me. So I'm like dancing with my friends, and then he goes to the other side by the bathrooms, and I like had to go to the bathroom. I'm like, oh, maybe he's intimidated because I'm dancing with my friends. Let me just go to the bathroom, and then if he like, maybe he'll see me when I'm coming out, and he'll talk. Does not happen. And then I'm like, oh, well, I'll get water. I want water to like help just get the alcohol out of my system. I walk by him, nothing. I'm like, weird, but like I keep noticing he looks at me. I'm like, I'm just imagining things. And then the top floor closes, so we go one floor down to go dance for like another 10 minutes. He's like right behind me. I'm like, this is so weird. Must be a coincidence. So then I'm dancing, and he's like right by me. I'm like, weird, but whatever. I like this other guy was hitting on Catherine, and Catherine like just blew him off, and I did like this thing. It was like, huh, loser. I'm a bitch. And I thought he saw me do that, and he made a face. I was like, oh, maybe this will scare him away. The club closes. We're walking down the stairs. I'm trying to keep up with my friends, and he's behind me. And I'm like, this is so weird. What a coincidence. And then we leave the club. We're outside. Someone's calling an Uber. And I'm like telling Catherine and Giorgio about this. I'm like, this is so weird. And I'm like telling them, I'm like, I think this guy was looking at me in there. And they're like, yeah, I kind of think so. I'm like, and I was like, oh, if he was here, I would talk to him. But he already left. I didn't see him. But then suddenly he comes back, and he's like, do you guys know how to get to Georgetown? Because we're in DuPont. I'm like, no. Straight up, I was like, no. I was like, I think Georgetown is this way. I'm actually going this way because I Ubered here from work, and I parked on this street. And I'm telling him all these details, which I should have not told a stranger, but whoops. And so I turned to him. I'm like, hey, you look really familiar. Thinking maybe if it's this Ryan guy, he'll respond. He's like, oh, really? Haha. And then my Uber's there. And I turned to him. I'm like, oh, by the way, my name's Grace. What's your name? And he goes, oh, my name's Henry. I'm like, oh, okay. So this isn't this Ryan guy. Oopsie daisy. So I'm in the Uber talking to Georgia and Catherine about it. We get to my car, and we're I'm driving home, talking to them. I'm driving them to Giorgio's place. And when I stop, I get a little notification from Snapchat being like, Ryan, whatever, his username, wants to be your friend on Snapchat. I'm like, this is weird. So I accept it. And he goes, did we just accidentally meet at the club? And I was like, was that you? You said your name was Henry, blah, blah, blah. And we're just talking. And then, I ended up hanging out with him later that day, night, at 5 a.m. We get McDonald's and we talk. And it's, vibing really well. And I kiss him because, why not? Just joking. But then we, make plans to hang out later. And then he unadds me on Snapchat. And I'm weird. So it's just weird. I'll see him on dating apps every once in a while. And we'll talk on Snapchat every once in a while. And I'm either this guy, I don't know why this guy keeps being in my life. It's been like 3 years. But who knows? But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you guys want to hear me talk about next. I really could use some ideas. But yeah. Okay, love ya. Kisses. Bye.